I am Kai Ren, and I'm 37 years old. Fire always makes a sound before it touches you. Not the roar people expect, but something smaller, more deliberate. Popping glass. A slow, crawling hiss. The kind of growl you'd mistake for an animal until your lungs tighten and your skin starts to burn. I heard it first in the walls. Felt it in the air. Smoke curled like fingers under the door. I pressed my palms together to stop the shaking. My breath came short and sharp. My shirt clung to my back, sweat already pooling in the hollow of my spine. Beside me, Amira struggled to sit upright, 7 months pregnant, coughing hard, eyes wide with disbelief. She didn't understand yet. But I did. I looked to the window, and there she was. Celine Voss. Unbothered. Calm as moonlight. Her hand resting on the window lock like it belonged there. And just behind her shoulder, frozen in the flicker of the fire she had started, was me. Before we go deeper, please like, comment, and subscribe. It truly helps this channel more than you realize, especially for stories like this that dig beneath the surface. And let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Are you here for the thrill? The healing? The revenge? Now let's begin. Everyone watching from the street expected me to run, to kick the door down, to break the window, to fight. I didn't move. Not because I was afraid, because I knew exactly what this was. Celine hadn't come back to kill Amira. Not really. The fire wasn't fast enough for that. It burned too deliberately. Drapes first, then the floor. Just enough heat to scare, not consume. Smoke that choked but didn't suffocate. No, this wasn't a murder attempt. It was a test. And I was the subject. Celine knew who I used to be. She remembered the version of me that people feared. The man who ended lives not with anger, but with precision. She knew what I was capable of. She was the last person who did. And now she wanted to see if that man still existed. 10 years earlier, I had a different name. One that lived in whispers across New Avalon's underworld. The kind of name that made people lock their doors twice and speak in codes. I was efficient. Cold. Unstoppable. But not loud. Loud men die young. I made problems disappear. Traitors. Threats. Loose ends. All gone, quiet, clean, forgotten. People called me a ghost. I called it math. Kill the variable. Solve the problem. Walk away. Then came Celine. She was never a mark. She was my exit plan. The only one who saw the man beneath the monster and didn't flinch. We had a plan, disappear together. New country. New lives. Quiet. But Celine saw something else in my secrets, value. She sold me to my enemies. Every file. Every habit. Every weakness. She auctioned me off for power. A crown built on betrayal. I vanished before they could finish me. Buried the name I once answered to. Burned it all. And then I met Amira. She worked at a bookstore in the Halcyon district, tucked between a wine shop and a flower cart. She asked questions like she already knew the answers. Laughed with her whole face. Never pressed when I pulled away. She taught me how to breathe again. Amira didn't know about the bodies. The blood. The silence. She knew a man who cooked with too much garlic, who stayed up to listen to her read aloud, who flinched when sirens got too close. She knew the man who touched her belly every night like he was asking for permission to believe this was real. And she gave it. No one had ever given me that before. Now, here she was, trapped behind rising smoke, choking on something Celine had built not to kill, but to drag me back into the darkness. Celine wanted blood, yes. But not Amira's. She wanted mine. Wanted me to kill again. Publicly. Brutally. Because if I snapped now, if I crushed Celine's throat like my body still knew how, everything would rise from the ashes. The name I buried. The history I erased. The fear. Police would come. Cameras. Questions. And our baby would be born with a shadow thicker than mine. So I made a choice. Not toward Celine. Toward the window. The glass exploded outward as I barreled through it, slicing open my arms. The cold night air clashed with the heat behind me. Smoke swallowed me in an instant. My coat wrapped around Amira as I reached her. She was light. Too light. Her skin hot. Her breath shallow. I carried her like I'd carried so many before. But this time it was to save. Not destroy. We hit the ground hard. Cold pavement. Glass in my shoulder. Amira gasping. But she was alive. The baby was alive. Celine stood 10 feet away, arms folded, face unreadable. She was waiting for me to make the next move. I stared at her. And then I turned my back. The sirens screamed. Neighbors stared from balconies. Phones recorded everything. And I didn't lay a single hand on her. Celine smiled, just slightly, and walked away. She thought she'd won. She thought I'd frozen. That I was broken. She had no idea what I was about to do. In the hospital, Amira barely spoke. Her voice scraped like sandpaper. Her hands moved instinctively to her belly every time she stirred. She didn't ask questions, not yet. But I saw it in her eyes. Why did you let her go? Why didn't you stop her? I didn't have words she'd understand. Because the truth wasn't about vengeance. It was about the lie Celine came to destroy. Celine always knew how to break me. Not with fists. With truth. She didn't want to murder Amira. She wanted to erase the version of me she believed was false. The peaceful man. The quiet one. The one who cooked and smiled and counted kicks in the middle of the night. She wanted to expose the performance. But what she didn't understand was this. It wasn't a performance. Not anymore. I left the underworld because I stopped being afraid of dying. I started being afraid of how little it mattered. There was a time when I could end a life and eat an hour later. Sleep a full night. Wake without dreams. That's what scared me. Not the violence. The numbness. So I walked away. Not for justice. Not for guilt. I walked away because I didn't want to forget what it meant to feel something when someone died. I built a new life with bricks of silence. And Amira brought the color back into it. Now Celine was back. And I couldn't let her burn it all down. Not by killing her. But by proving she didn't matter. In the days that followed, I didn't go after her. No late-night visits. No cryptic threats. Just hospital visits. Coffee runs. Long silences. Everyone thought I was broken. Even Amira. And Celine watched. From rooftops. From parked cars. From behind tinted glass. She watched and waited for Go Kai Run, the old me, to return. But he didn't. Because this war wasn't going to be fought in alleys or boardrooms. It was going to be fought in silence. And it had already begun. The first time Amira spoke after the fire, her voice was barely there. Are you just going to let her walk away? Her hand rested protectively on her stomach. Her eyes, raw from smoke and betrayal, held mine like they were searching for something I couldn't give. An answer. A plan. A reason. But I didn't have one she would understand. Not yet. Because this wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. This was about legacy. Celine Voss hadn't returned because she wanted to kill Amira. That would have been easy. Fast. Final. She wanted something slower. More corrosive. She wanted to unmake me, not with bullets or fire, but by making me choose. Kill her, and the monster returns. Spare her, and everyone sees me as weak. A no-win. Unless I rewrote the rules. The hospital smelled like bleach and fear. Amira was monitored constantly, heartbeats, hormone levels, fluid counts. The baby was fine. They used the word resilient. A word that tasted like a miracle and sounded like a lie. Outside her room, I sat in a chair that squeaked if I even breathed too hard. I hadn't slept since the fire. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Celine's hand on that lock. Heard the click. Felt the heat blooming across my back. Not trauma. Memory. Celine had done what she always did best. She'd forced the truth into the open. And I couldn't run from it this time. The police came next. Detectives with lined faces and clipped questions. Did I know her? Yes. Was she an ex? Yes. Did I know why she'd done this? No. Would I be pressing charges? Only what the state pursued. They didn't believe me. Not really. One of them, older, tired, the kind who's seen too much, leaned in close. If you're planning something, he said, don't. I held his gaze. I'm not. He didn't believe that either. And I didn't blame him. Word spread fast in the shadows. Kyron wasn't dead after all. The man who disappeared, the one who'd made problems vanish in boardrooms and bathrooms and rain-slicked alleys, had surfaced. And the underworld held its breath. Old contacts pinged phones I hadn't touched in years. Men I'd erased myself from sent messages through back channels, through mutual ghosts. They weren't offering help. They were offering fear. Because they knew if I came back, it wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be final. But I didn't return their messages. I didn't make calls. Didn't send warnings. I didn't move at all. I sat next to Amira, day after day, as she healed. And I let Celine think she'd won. She watched us, I know she did. Kept tabs. She scaled back her security. Stopped sleeping with her gun under the pillow. Started appearing in public again, Solace District brunches, gallery openings, cameras catching her in expensive clothes with an even more expensive smile. She gave interviews. Said she hoped I'd find peace. She didn't mean it. She believed I was broken. And that belief was her first mistake. The second was underestimating silence. Because I wasn't planning violence. I was planning erasure. And it started with a name. Not mine. I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in a decade. A man who called himself Locke. He was a forensic accountant. The kind who could find money in ashes. A man who followed whispers through offshore accounts and shell corporations until they screamed. I called from a payphone outside a late-night diner. I need everything connected to Celine Voss. Every name. Every shell company. Every asset she thought was hidden. There was a long pause. I thought you were dead, he said. I was, I replied. Now I'm not. Celine had learned from the best. Me. Her empire was a mirrored version of mine. Real estate. Front companies. Trust funds and quiet holdings in cities where she didn't even speak the language. But I knew the threads. Because I'd spun them once myself. And I knew exactly where to pull. I didn't use enforcers. I used lawyers. Investigators. Bureaucrats with sharp pens and sharper instincts. The kind of people who filed paperwork so cleanly, it made billionaires bleed. First came a flagged transaction from a dormant company in the Caymans. Then a property title discrepancy in New Avalon's northern corridor. Then an audit that revealed misfiled taxes from 6 years prior. No one questioned her yet. Not publicly. But things began to tighten. Slowly. Deliberately. While she smiled for cameras, her foundations cracked. One of her early partners flipped. Testified in exchange for immunity. A sealed deposition, signed and notarized. Her lawyers scrambled. Her accountants panicked. She suspected me, of course. She just couldn't prove it. Because there were no fingerprints. Only pressure. At night, when Amira slept, I sat at our kitchen table with cold coffee and glowing screens. I documented every lie Celine ever told. Every dollar she moved. Every backdoor she used to climb the ladder I built for her. I wasn't destroying her out of spite. I was protecting what she tried to burn. The trust in Amira's eyes. The kick in our unborn child's ribs. The version of myself I was building brick by brick, fragile but real. Amira noticed the change before I could hide it. You're here, but not present, she said. She was right. I still touched her stomach every night. Still asked the silent question. But my eyes were somewhere else. Planning. Watching. Waiting. One morning, she asked, "Are you sleeping?" "Enough," I said. "A lie. Are you planning something?" I looked at her. Really looked. And saw the truth behind her question. Not fear of Celine. Fear of me. Of who I might become again. "I'm protecting you," I said softly. That's not an answer. She was right again. But I didn't have one she'd accept. Not yet. 3 weeks after the fire, Celine's personal accountant called her in a panic. Audits. Investigations. Frozen assets. Whispers of warrants. Her empire, untouchable for a decade, was unraveling. And she couldn't find the thread. Because I was invisible. Just like before. I never touched a gun. Never made a threat. I let the pressure do what bullets never could. Make her doubt herself. Make her believe her world was collapsing under its own weight. And it was. I just helped gravity along. Amira found the files by accident. I left my laptop open. Not from carelessness, from exhaustion. She wasn't snooping. She was looking for a grocery list. Instead, she found everything. Every name. Every document. Every piece of Celine's empire annotated in my handwriting. When I came out of the shower, she was sitting at the kitchen table, laptop between us like a courtroom divider. "Tell me," she said. Not a question. A command. So I did. I told her my real name, the one I burned. Told her what I used to do. Who I used to be. Why people used to go silent when I walked into a room. I told her about Celine. About the betrayal. The death I faked to stay alive. The lies I told myself to believe I could be someone new. Amira listened. No interruptions. No judgment. Just hands folded, eyes steady. "The night of the fire," I said, voice trembling. "I could have killed her. It would have taken 3 seconds. I paused. But if I had, you would have seen the man I used to be. And our child would have been born into that story." Amira didn't cry. Not yet. She just asked, "So what are you doing now?" "Destroying her," I said. "Legally. Quietly. Without blood. So our child inherits my restraint. Not my violence." The silence stretched between us. You should have told me, she said. I know. I'm not afraid of your past, she continued. I'm afraid of you carrying it alone. That broke something in me. A silence I hadn't even realized I'd been holding. I thought if you knew, I whispered, you'd leave. I'm still here, she said. And that night, for the first time in weeks, I slept. 2 days later, Celine was arrested. Not in a whisper. In broad daylight. Outside a luxury restaurant in Solace District. The media caught every second. Financial Crimes Unit. Federal warrants. Her lawyers arrived too late. Her empire collapsed in 72 hours. Properties seized. Accounts frozen. Allies turned on her like scavengers. The woman who'd once orchestrated betrayal with a glass of wine in hand now couldn't step outside without being swarmed by reporters. And through it all, I remained unseen. Celine demanded to see me. She got her wish. One meeting. Cold room. Concrete walls. She looked thinner. Hair limp. Face drawn. But her eyes still burned. She wanted rage. A monologue. Revenge. I gave her none of it. Why? She asked finally. You could have just killed me. It would have been faster. I leaned forward. You wanted fire, I said. She stared at me, confused. I gave you time. Her face twisted. She laughed, bitter, broken. This is mercy, she spat. Destroying me piece by piece? No, I said, standing. This is protection. You came for my family. I made sure you'll never be able to do it again. I walked toward the door. Wait, I didn't. She sat in that concrete room and realized. Death would have been mercy. This was worse. This was forgetting. The city moved on faster than Celine ever expected. That was the first thing prison taught her. The headlines burned bright for a week. The fall of an empire, the unraveling of a woman once untouchable. Panels of experts dissected her rise and collapse. Commentators debated greed, power, and betrayal like it was theory instead of lived damage. Then something quieter happened. People stopped talking. New scandals took her place. New villains. New faces. Her name became a reference, then a footnote, then a memory that only mattered to those who'd lost something because of her. And that, more than the cell or the sentence, broke her. The trial lasted months. Every document I'd helped surface became a stone added to the weight pressing down on her future. Financial records so precise they left no room for interpretation. Testimony from former allies who chose freedom over loyalty. Shell companies exposed like bones under thin soil. She watched it all unravel from behind a polished defense table, jaw tight, eyes sharp, still believing, for far too long, that she could talk her way out. She couldn't. The verdict came quietly. Guilty. The sentence followed. 18 years. Not life. Not death. Time. Enough time to watch the world forget her. Enough time to understand what patience really felt like when it wasn't a weapon but a cage. I didn't attend the sentencing. I was somewhere else entirely. The baby was born on a quiet April morning, before sunrise, when the city still hadn't decided whether to wake up. No alarms. No sirens. No fire. Just Amira's breath, steady and fierce, her hand crushing mine as if anchoring herself to this world. The room smelled like antiseptic and anticipation. Nurses moved calmly. Doctors spoke in reassuring tones. Then a cry. Sharp. Furious. Alive. A daughter. They placed her in my arms, small, warm, impossibly real. Hands that had once been used for destruction now held something that trusted without question. I felt terror. Not of enemies. Not of the past. But of failing this fragile thing that knew nothing of fire or blood or names that once carried weight. She has your eyes, Amira whispered, exhausted, smiling through tears. I looked down at my daughter and made a promise I didn't speak aloud. You will never carry what I carried. Life didn't reset after that. It softened. Which was harder. Some nights, the smoke still came back. Phantom scents. Heat that wasn't there. The sound of glass breaking in dreams that snapped me awake with my heart racing. Amira learned how to pull me back. Her hand on my chest. Her breath syncing with mine. The quiet reassurance of a life that kept choosing to continue. In the next room, our daughter slept, untouched by the past that tried to claim her before she even breathed. Celine requested one final meeting before sentencing was finalized. One last attempt at control. I agreed. Not for closure. For confirmation. The room was colder than I remembered. Concrete walls. Fluorescent lights that flattened everything they touched. She looked smaller now. Not weak, just stripped of illusion. She studied my face like she was searching for something familiar. You could have killed me, she said. You know that. Yes. It would have been easier. Yes. So why didn't you? I considered the question longer than she expected. Because you wanted that version of me, I said. And I didn't want to give you anything anymore. Her mouth twisted. So this is what you call mercy? No, I replied calmly. This is absence. She laughed, brittle and hollow. You think you won? I leaned forward just enough for her to hear me clearly. This was never about winning. I stood. She didn't ask me to stay. For the first time, she had nothing left to leverage. After that, I disappeared again. Completely. The lawyers were paid. The investigators thanked. The accountant closed his files and erased my number. The laptop that held Celine's dismantling was wiped clean and donated. Every digital trail severed. Every contact cut. The underworld waited. Some believed I was lying low. Others believed I'd lost my edge. A few, the smart ones, understood the truth. That I was done. Power had once defined me. Control. Fear. Now absence did. And absence was something no one could touch. Amira asked me months later if I regretted not killing Celine when I had the chance. We were in the kitchen, early morning light spilling across the floor. Our daughter slept against my chest, breathing slow and deep. I regret believing violence was the only language I had, I said. But not that choice. She leaned against me. You think she'll understand one day? She asked softly. I looked down at our daughter. Maybe, I said. Or maybe she'll just know I was there. That felt like enough. Years passed. Quietly. Deliberately. The kind of years people overlook because nothing explodes in them. I learned how to be present without scanning exits. How to listen without calculating risk. How to live without waiting for the past to knock. Sometimes it still tried. But it no longer had a key. Celine's name faded. Her empire became a case study. Then a paragraph. Then nothing. Which was the cruelest outcome she could have imagined. Because she'd wanted to expose a monster. Instead, she proved something far worse. That the man she feared most no longer needed to exist. The strongest revenge was never destruction. It was living a life untouched by the hands that tried to burn it down. It was mornings with coffee and small arguments about nothing. It was bedtime stories and scraped knees and laughter that didn't echo with ghosts. It was choosing restraint when rage would have been easier. And if you've made it this far, thank you. If this story resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe. It truly helps more than you think. Let me know where you're watching from, and tell me, do you believe restraint is stronger than revenge? Because sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is stay gone.